Here's exactly what I would do if I had to get divorced again. I'm Taylor Wynn's divorce attorney, divorce mama for helping people experience divorce way differently than they ever thought possible. So, if I had to go back and get divorced all over again, here are the 5 things that I would do to be having a radically different post divorce life and experience than the one I'm having right now. So, like I said, I'm a divorce attorney, but I've also been divorced for 4.5 years. When I got divorced, I was already a divorce attorney. So I knew exactly what needed to make it into that decree so that a court would sign it and I could get on with the rest of my life. But what I didn't realize was that going really fast through the divorce, because I just wanted to be done, I wanted to be out of that marriage relationship, was going to cost me a lot of things because I didn't think in reality. I only thought in requirements and facts and figures and schedules and the details that the court tells you you have to have before they're going to sign the document that finalizes your divorce. There's way more to divorce than just those specific requirements that the court makes you include. So, if I had to do it over, these are the 5 things that I would do on top of the requirements to make sure that I have the best post divorce setup for myself walking out of my marriage relationship. So, the first thing I would do is I would get crystal clear on my finances. A lot of people skip over this. They treat the discovery process where you have to disclose certain things to your soon to be former spouse before you can get the divorce, like an exercise, right? So they do the work of they download the bank statements and they get the taxes collected and they get the car notes and the mortgage and all that. And then they just turn it over. But they don't ever actually spend any time sitting with those finances and analyzing where is the money going? What money is coming in? Like you're going to know how much you are making gross, but we don't really care about that, right? We need to know how much money we need to live going forward. So I would go back and I would actually take that as an opportunity to do a deep dive into my finances since I had to collect all the data and turn it over anyways. So I would go back through and I would be like, okay, is my health insurance the most affordable that I can have? Do I have the best deductible that makes sense for my kids and my family? How can I get out of debt and prioritize what debt I'm going to pay off first in what order? And I would just be really intentional with my money going forward because it's this huge transition where I would have had the opportunity or did have the opportunity to look at that and make good decisions into my future. The next thing I would do is I would build a post divorce budget. So I would get into my finances, see what debts I have, see what money is coming in. And then I would actually think about, okay, how much is it going to cost me to live my new life? How much am I going to be paying in rent? What's my car note? How much money do I think I need to spend on gas and groceries now that things are looking a little bit differently? I have the kids maybe part of the time instead of all the time. There's one adult on my grocery bill instead of 2 adults on my grocery bill. But now I also have that added burden of 100% of the housing and all of that. And I would get clear on what the dollars and cents are around what it takes for me to live after my divorce is over. A lot of people don't do this work. I didn't do this work. I wasn't clear on my finances. I wasn't intentional about creating a budget and getting my next place and my next housing and all of that in my life. And it actually took me having to move home for an entire year before I could pull together enough money and get myself budgeted appropriately to go out and rent my first place that I was going to live in after my divorce. Next, I would put more effort into making sure I understood how custody and parenting time actually worked. Yeah, as a divorce attorney, I was very clear on the fact that you have to have a parenting time schedule. We're going to share joint legal custody because the court says that just about everybody is going to get joint legal custody with their former partner unless that former partner is seriously defunct and there's something really, really wrong with them. But I didn't really have any lived experience or any personal knowledge about what parenting after divorce actually looks like. So I wasn't prepared for some of the things that come with it on top of just that delineated parenting time schedule of where the children are on Monday versus Tuesday and what joint legal custody really meant. So then as my kids grew and got older, I didn't realize that there were going to be a lot of times where we were actually co-parenting like in the same space or juggling 4 kids together on my former spouse's day and I'm still on duty even though it's not my day, or that we might have all these sports and activities that would come up and I'm really maybe into one sport or one activity And because I can't control what an association does or what swim lessons are available, the kids might only be signed up on my former spouse's day, or we might be going back and forth. And then the kids have stuff, for this one activity on both people's parenting time. And like, what was that going to look like? And I really didn't have any idea. And so it wasn't until a couple years down the road that now we have this schedule, but the schedule isn't really working for anybody because I didn't understand the real life implications of what putting together a parenting time schedule actually looks like, or the real life implications of what it means to try to make joint decisions with a person that you're no longer married to, maybe don't have any affinity for anymore, or who's like a stranger to you at this point in time. So I would take a lot more thoughtfulness into how does this parenting time schedule need to grow and evolve as the kids grow, and how do we need to conquer joint decision making around those legal custody issues, like healthcare, like education, like religious upbringing, if that's an issue, right? And like, what are we going to do going forward? I would also take better care to set emotional boundaries much, much earlier in the divorce process and in the post divorce process as well. You have to remember, which I forgot, that the person that you're divorcing probably isn't automatically just going to be your friend. You're not automatically going to just get along, or if you're getting along now, you may not be getting along in the future. And you have to have some clarity about where our relationship starts and ends, right? You're co parents, it's the business of parenting and raising a family that you started together. You got to see it through to completion, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're buddy buddy. That doesn't necessarily mean we're right away sitting in the same pew at church or on the same bleacher row at the basketball game. And so having emotional boundaries about what I needed and then sticking to those boundaries instead of listening to the peanut gallery tell me what I should be doing and how I should be relating and acting around my former spouse. Another thing with the emotional boundaries is that divorce truly can bring out the worst in a person. I see it professionally all the time when my clients are divorcing their spouse and their spouse is acting in a way that's so hurtful to them and they can't quite understand where some of that pain is coming from. So you have to also realize the person that you're divorcing is going through their own, be it like stages of grief, their own hurting process, and they're trying to get to a place maybe where they can heal, but that doesn't mean it's going to be on the same timeline that you have. So those emotional boundaries would have also served me really well in realizing that some of the stuff that was going on interpersonally between us and those early just divorced days, months, weeks, and even years didn't really have anything to do with me so much as it did the transition I was going through with my former spouse that they were dealing with as well. And then I would plan for the long game and not just a short term escape. I was one of these people that I'm now counseling to not be too hasty. I was very, very done with the relationship. I needed to exit. I wanted to get out of the home. And it wasn't good enough for me to just get out of the home and then have the divorce lingering for a really long period of time. I wanted the finality of having that paper back from the court and of being divorced. And I really pushed to have the divorce done very quickly when I probably could have slowed down and taken a little more time. I'm not talking about dragging it out for a year or 2 years, but I could have, instead of having a divorce that took 4 weeks, had a divorce that maybe took 4 months. And then I could have done all those things that I would do if I could go back now and do it over, like getting super clear about my finances, doing post divorce budgeting. So I knew what I needed from the house equity, from the retirement to start over and get moving forward, right? Because that is the long game. Like, how do I set up my life so that I can write that next chapter and go forward? Not how do I get out? And then you get out and you're like, okay, now what? Right? Because there is no plan. So it's super important to be planful and play the long game, because for a lot of us, we're going to be divorced for two, three, four, 10 times the amount of time that we were married. At a short term marriage, I was married 6.5 years, got divorced at 31. I have my whole life to be divorced from this person. And a lot of my friends, by the time I got divorced and had my 4 kids, hadn't even been married the first time, right? So there was no need to be so hasty in getting out because my whole life was ahead of me. And not that I have regrets, they're wasted emotion, but I did have the opportunity to do it way differently than I did. And if I could go back, that's something I would tell my past self. So if I had to do it over, those are the exact 5 things that I would do differently to set my life up to have the best post-divorce life the fastest. Because divorce isn't just some ending, right? It's starting an entirely new journey and chapter of your life. So you can set yourself up in the best way possible. I'm going to drop some links below. We have a masterclass about how to get ready for divorce that goes in detail through a lot of these things that I talked about today and more, that you can watch and get familiar with the process and start writing your own next chapter.